Welcome to our channel.
This is our first ever YouTube channel we've ever filmed, so we're really excited.
So the reason for this video is to talk about our trip to Yellowstone this year. We went in July and we learned a lot of tips and tricks that we thought could be helpful or useful to people that are planning their trip to Yellowstone.
Yellowstone is a very fun place. I'm very young, so, and I had a lot of fun there, so, I mean, if you have young kids, it could also be fun for them too.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we have this little one right here. She's 10, and our oldest, he is 14. So we went to Yellowstone in July. We are from Texas, so we're used to pretty extreme heat temperatures, and so planning a trip to Yellowstone was a little bit it was challenging for us because we didn't know what the weather was going to be like. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. I do have a checklist to go through, so if you see me marking on my paper here, that's why, just because I don't want to lose my train of thought and make sure you guys get all the tips. So I guess ready to jump in?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here's our tips and tricks. We have about 9 pro tips for you guys. So we flew in to Bozeman, Montana. We planned our trip a little bit late. It was kind of a last minute trip to Yellowstone. We actually stayed in Bozeman, Montana. I'm sorry, we flew into Bozeman. We stayed in Big Sky, which is about an hour outside of the park. So we had a little hiccup there, so we're gonna try this again. So we stayed at Buck's T4 Lodge. The accommodations were great. If you're looking for that little cabin-like feel, it was not super fancy or anything like that. The service was fantastic. The people working the desk were great. They did have hot tubs, no pool, but hot tubs. The rooms were, you know, your typical rooms. We had 2 queen beds. We had a mini fridge, which was super helpful. That's one of our tips later. They had a restaurant on site, which came in handy a couple of nights when we were looking for food. So that was about an hour outside of the park.
Honestly, at the place, Buck's T4 Lodge, they actually have a restaurant there. I definitely recommend it. They're, what do they call it?
I don't remember.
It's the tater tots we had.
Oh, the truffle tater tots. Yeah. They were fantastic. Definitely recommend if you go there to try their truffle tater tots. They were very good.
It has truffle oil on the tater tots, and honestly, I didn't think I'd like truffle oil, but me and my brother really liked them.
Awesome. So good tip. If you go there, eat the truffle tater tots. They were really good. One thing we learned really quickly when we got there, because we flew in from DFW, once we got there, we kind of just went straight to the park, not really thinking about what we were going to need. We are from North Dallas area. We have access to everything, all big box stores. You can drive in any direction in a couple miles and get whatever you need. Montana, not quite the same experience. So if you need to purchase anything, I would do that before you get to your destination, wherever that is. We needed sunscreen. We all got burned. The day we were there, we had to come back in and get sunscreen, and so that was a little bit of a hassle because it took forever to get everywhere. Where we're from, we can get to places and things we need really quickly. So that would be one of my tips. If you're staying outside of the park, try to find those big box stores before you go to your destination and get whatever items you need to purchase, sunscreen, groceries, etc. So our first day, we got there, we flew in at around 2 o'clock. We went straight to the park to try to get a feel for where everything was at. We spent, I think we got in about 2 o'clock. We spent several hours there, and then we tried to make our way to the hotel. One thing that we figured out really quickly is that there is no cell service in the park. Not great cell service. You might get some here and there. Not that you want to be on your phones constantly. You're not going to want to do that anyways. But you don't have a lot of cell service, so just be prepared for that. We did come across a great app by talking to another traveler that I wish we would have had the very first day. I think it would have saved us a ton of time. It had great tips, locations to visit that we didn't even think we would want to go, and it ended up being the most exciting part of our trip. It's called App Gypsy Guide, and I will put a little link right up here, or a picture, if I can figure out how to do that, so that you guys can see what it is. This app was great. So as soon as we got into the park, I opened the app up. So you do have to download the information first because you don't have cell service. So when you're at your hotel, make sure you download everything before you get away from any kind of Wi-Fi connection. Once we got into the park, we turned on the app and it knew exactly where we were in the park, and it took over, and it was a guide. And so as we were driving along, it would tell us, hey, you might want to stop here. This is what's at this location. This is why it's important. Some stops, you know, it would tell you that were maybe a higher priority than others. And then it had little stories along the way. They were very short and sweet, but it gave you a lot of information about the park. Some things that we had questions about that were actually answered using the app. So I highly recommend that. You do have to pay for it. It's not super expensive. We bought the Yellowstone and Teton one because we do plan on going to the Tetons this next year. So highly recommend that app. It was a fantastic addition to our travels. Anything you want to add about the app?
Well, the app was awesome. It did get annoying sometimes, so.
So your kids might get annoyed with it just because you do learn some history about it. If they're not into that, they may not like it. But for the parents, it's a really good one.
Yeah, definitely. We knew that the app was telling us to stop at very popular places because when we went there were like a whole bunch of people. So, yeah. Beware of that.
So that was the second tip. So the first one's grab your items. Number 2 is the App Gypsy Guide app. I believe it's on iPhone and Android. Number 3, and these are in no particular order. We just kind of wrote them down as we thought about them. Things that we wish we would have known. So number 3, bathrooms. I was super worried about the bathroom situation. It's a big park, obviously. I was not sure how we were going to get to where we needed because we learned on that very first day. She has a funny story, and maybe we'll get to that story about the bathroom situation, but we'll get to that in a second. So I was worried about the bathrooms from the first day because when we drove through the park, I had noticed that it was kind of difficult to get to bathrooms. What we quickly figured out after driving through the park for a couple hours is that they had these little pull-offs for bathrooms. And so those pull-offs were great. Once we figured out that was the best place to pull over for the bathrooms before you get to your big sites like the Old Faithful Geyser, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So they have bathrooms accessible. You don't have to worry about that, especially if you have little ones. They were clean for the most part. They do smell atrocious, but most of the ones we went into were very clean and very easy to use. I would say that if you're a germaphobe, the only thing that's in those is hand sanitizer. I had baby wipes with me, which was great. I also bought these wonderful little soap sheets that I think would be a wonderful addition. I found these later. Sorry about that. It's kind of loud. I found these later, and we use them when we take our hikes and things like that. I'll also try to figure out how to link those up here or put a picture. That are wonderful. So if you are kind of a germaphobe, which I mean, I know these days, trying to be wary of that is very important. So I kept hand sanitizer, and we used baby wipes to kind of wipe down our hands additionally. But again, the bathrooms were usually clean. Baby wipes also came in handy when the toilet paper was out. We ran into one situation where one of the bathrooms did not have toilet paper. So baby wipes are a great item to have, extra hand sanitizer, and these little soapbox things. So one other tip that I have about the bathrooms that we found out, I think on the second day when we started going to those big sites, the ones that everyone wants to go to, it gets super busy. So when we went to Old Faithful, it was insane. It was so busy, and we all had to go to the bathroom. So I would advise, if you can, on the way there, when you get pretty close to your destination, pull over to one of those bathrooms that are along the way and use the bathroom there, because you're not going to have to wait in line. The lines were very long. We had to spend quite a bit of time waiting in the bathroom when we could have went straight to Old Faithful. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because I have another tip about that. But when you go to those big sites, if you can, stop at those bathrooms along the way. I think those are... So she has a really funny story. We went to the Yellowstone Lake, which was great. They had a ton of bathroom options. There wasn't a super, super long line. But we ran into something that we hadn't seen before. So she's going to tell her story about these bathrooms.
Okay. So, one tip, don't go into the squat potties. So this sounds really TMI. You can skip through this if you want to, if it's a little too TMI for you. But if you're curious, here's a story for you. So I need to go to the bathroom like any normal human being. We were waiting in the line, and I was like, oh my gosh, a squatty potty. This is so much easier than a normal bathroom, than a normal toilet. When we got there, after waiting in a line, quite a long line, there was this one man who said, good luck. And we were like, okay. When we got there, I was like, oh no. What have we gotten into?
So, what it looked like. So if you've been around camping and things like that a lot, you probably already know what this is, and you can imagine where the story is going to go. We had never been into a bathroom that had a squatty potty.
And so when my mom, she was fine. But when I used the bathroom, I was about to fall through the hole, and my pee was going everywhere. It was splashing. I wasn't pushing. It was going everywhere. To the left, to the right, everywhere.
So, to fill you in a little bit about that, so we did not expect it to be. It is literally a hole in the wall, down level on the ground, and it had just like a metal seat on there, I guess is a metal seat. So it was level with the ground. So for most of us, it's really not a big deal. You just squat down and use the bathroom. But for her, it was a little bit more difficult. She had a hard time squatting. And so I had to hold her up. I had her propped up. And yes, she was having difficulty getting the stuff in the hole.
And I had to go number 2, and I was like, I can't do this in the squatty potty. I gotta go to this next restroom. And so what we did was we waited in another line to use the other toilet.
Yeah,
because
so
I couldn't use a squatty potty.
For men, I think the squatty potty is fine. If you just have to pee, then you're good to go. If you have to do anything else, you might want to wait and go to the other bathroom. So that was a funny little story from our trip. It was quite funny. So that was number 3. Hit those bathrooms when you can to try to avoid those lines at the big destinations that you really want to take in. All right, number 4, road closures. So we had our heart set on going to Lamar Valley, and that section of the park was closed off because of construction. And so we didn't actually get to go to Lamar Valley. And so when we went, I think it was the second day, because of the road closures, there was areas of the park we couldn't go, which created a much longer travel time to go to some of those places that we wanted to go. And I wish I would have known. I wanted to start a blog about, traveling and adventures, and I would have made sure to write some of this stuff down. And so hopefully for those next videos, they'll be a little bit better. But how the overview is, just make sure that you know where your road closures are so you can plan your trip accordingly and make sure you get to hit those destinations that you want to. Which is 5, Hayden Valley. So we didn't get to go to Lamar Valley, which is where you get to see all of the wildlife, all the buffalo, all of that. Hayden Valley was one of the best experiences of our trip. It was absolutely wonderful. I think we spent, over an hour on that road when we got there. And so the traffic was backed up because all of the buffalo were walking across the road. And bison, buffalo, I think it's the same. I think they called them the same thing when we were there. So you will get to see a lot of those. We got to see a lot of babies, and I'll try to put some pictures up here again if I can figure out how to do that in some of our other videos of the bison that we were able to see. That was really the highlight of our trip. Some people got pretty close to them. I would not advise getting out of your car. Stay in your car, but you get to see plenty, and it's just such a beautiful sight. It later in the evening when we got to go, so you could see some of the sunset as well for the park. It was absolutely stunning. Did you have anything to add about Hayden Valley?
They might, if you have your windows open, I do not recommend having your windows open all the way because the bison might stick their head through the window. That did not happen to us, luckily. Our hair is still fine. All our hair is still here. But I do not recommend like sticking your camera out of the window because you never know what animals are going to do these days.
Okay, so pro tip from a 10-year-old, don't stick your cameras out of your car. All right, number 6. I did not know this going in. This was our first trip to a national park. I did try to do some research and watch some videos. I don't recall anybody ever talking about this. I did not realize there was not really going to be places to stop and be able to get food along the way when you're inside the park, unless you're going to those big places like where Old Faithful is, and there's food options and all the amenities that you might need. So I already knew I wanted to pack a lunch. Just really was for just trying to save money, honestly, because I knew we would be going out each night to eat. And our hotel actually offered breakfast, so we were able to get breakfast, and then I packed a lunch, and then we went out to eat at night. So we packed a lunch, which is why I wanted a hotel with a mini fridge. So we packed lunches. We had granola bars and sandwiches and fresh fruit and things like that, and we just bought a styrofoam ice chest to have that in the car, and we were able to pack our lunch ahead of time and take it, and had plenty of snacks for the kids and things like that. So I thought that was a huge plus. It made it really easy when we stopped at those hikes that we were able to either have a snack, go hike, and then come back and have a snack if we wanted to. What did you think about the food?
I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, good. So, like she said earlier, if you have access to an REI, of course you can order from Amazon or anywhere that you get your camping gear and stuff like that. We bought hydration packs because we knew we were going to be outside a lot. That was such a fantastic thing to have on hand. We went through so much water because, again, we went in July, and even though it's not Texas heat, it still got hot. So the kids had their own, and then we had our own, and so we filled them up before we left, and then we had about a gallon in the car with us to make sure that we had plenty if we ran out. And so anytime we went on any of the hikes, we had our hydration packs with a granola bar, and sunscreen, hats, things like that. Hats. We all wore hats the entire time. I think that was greatly beneficial, hats and sunscreen, depending on when you're going, to keep you cool, of course. Another thing to add on that is Sky wants out. Another thing to add to the clothing, coming from Texas in July, it's hot in the morning, all through till the evening. When we got to Montana, I don't know what I was thinking. Just have never been there. It was very cool in the morning, so making sure you have those proper layers so that you can shed some of those. So till about 11 o'clock, I think we all had long sleeves on, and then once 11 o'clock hit, we all had shorts and t-shirts on. The kids had some of those, and my husband had some of those pants where you can kind of take the leg off and it turns into shorts. Those were very useful. Again, got all that at REI before we went. So if it's in your budget, I would highly recommend getting hydration packs, making sure you have hats and sunglasses. I think those are the big things if you go in the summer. Anything to add to the clothing part of this?
Yeah, I recommend packing pants. So in the morning, normally it's in the 30s or the 40s, but then definitely later it gets hot, like in the 90s, maybe the high 80s, maybe even 100s. I don't know.
I don't know if it got to the hundreds.
Probably not, but you never know. Also, something I would like to add, that's not on this topic, but I do not recommend small cars in Montana. So I recommend tall cars.
The kids did not like the little bitty car that we drove around in. It was fine, not a big deal. it was easy to whip in and out of the places that we went, all of the sites, which actually wasn't on my list, but it's actually a great topic to talk about. So when you're going to your sites, a lot of times you'll just grab the first parking spot that you see. We found, because we watched another video and the people were like, you know, there were tons of parking spots at the inside, like where the parking was. We found that to be true about half the time. We didn't mind walking, so we tended to just grab a parking spot as we saw it and went to the site that we were going to go see, just to save driving around in case. So I don't, that's going to be a personal preference kind of thing. If you're like us and you just want to get to your site as quickly as possible and you don't mind walking, grab the first parking spot that you see and go. It really wasn't that big of a deal. As I've heard, I guess depending on the time of year that you go, it could be hit or miss. When we went to the Grand Prismatic, that one was very, very busy. Obviously, it's one of the most popular sites to go to at Yellowstone. That one was incredibly busy. I will say, if you're short on time and you have a short trip, the entry for like the eye level where you get to walk across the little board sidewalk, I didn't find that one to be as exciting. We overheard someone talking about the Fairy Falls hike, and so you go up and you hike and you get a overview at a much higher level. I found that to be the best one. I kind of wish we wouldn't have wasted our time on the other one. And I'll put a picture in here of both versions and you can kind of see. Of course, you can Google these and you can see them. But if you're short on time, I definitely like the Fairy Falls hike the best. If you want to go see both, of course, go see both. But if you're short on time, if you had to pick one, I would pick the hike if you can do that. It was not a big hike. I think it was a mile around, or maybe it was a mile there and a mile back. I cannot remember, but it wasn't bad. And it wasn't extremely busy. Like once we got up there to take pictures, it wasn't a big deal. Everybody was very friendly. Everybody took turns. So you were able to get in there and get your picture. All right. Number 7. Okay. Number 7. A lot of people we found did not buy their park passes before they got there. Buy your park pass. We ended up buying a national park pass. The line for that is much quicker to get through. So if you can, buy your park passes ahead of time, so that saves you the drama of having to wait in line and deal with that. So get those park passes ahead of time. Number 9. I don't remember. Oh, we talked about Grand Prismatic. That was number 8. Number 9, the geysers at Old Faithful. So Old Faithful was really, really cool. However, I, again, did not find the traditional spot to be the best spot. There is a bunch of trails behind Old Faithful, and I wish I could remember the other geyser. Do you remember the other geyser that was the really big one?
I don't know, but I know, honestly, I think you're about to say this, but where another geyser was so much of a better view of Old Faithful than it was in front of Old Faithful.
So I know you try to take tips from people you have no idea about, but I will say, instead of waiting the hour, I think we ended up waiting an hour when we got there, and they have those benches put out right in front of Old Faithful, because all of the times are estimates. It's 20 minutes, here or there, which was fine. It wasn't a big deal. But had I realized that there were tons of paths behind Old Faithful where you could stay in the vicinity, I would have chosen to do that instead and been walking around and looking at all of the other geysers and all of the different things back there. Because once we got back there, after we watched Old Faithful, once we got back there, we were able to see Old Faithful again, and it was a much better view. And then we were there, we were actually by ourselves, I think, where we were watching it, and it was spectacular. And that was like back behind. There was tons of geysers back there. There was another one, and I wish I could remember the name, and if I stumble across it, I'll pop it up here. It is massive, and it went on for a much longer time, if I recall, right?
Now, I think it what do you call it? Explodes or whatever?
Yeah, it was, I personally thought it was better than Old Faithful.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know the right word to use to describe it, but it like explodes every 4 days. So we were really lucky to see it.
I don't know if it was that one.
Yeah. No, the one that we saw was 4 days.
We'll look it up if we can, and we'll post it on here to double check. But either way, going to the back there where all those trails were, I found that to be much better and a much better experience. And then you get to see Old Faithful from a different perspective. But if you're good with waiting there and you need a break, hey, that's good too. We sat there, she took a nap.
That's a good nap.
So our overall experience for Old Faithful was great. If you have time, we stayed a week. So we got there on a Monday at about 2 o'clock, and we stayed until Saturday. We stayed until Saturday. Of course, Saturday was not a into the park kind of day. We flew out very early on Saturday, so we had so we had a half a day on Monday, and then a full Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We actually did not spend one of the days in the park. We actually went whitewater rafting. My kids liked it for the first couple of hours. It is, if you've been whitewater rafting and you have ever been to probably rapids of like a 3s, 4s, and 5s, you are not going to want to go on this rafting trip. This is really, in my personal opinion, is for little kids. If you want to take them down the river, this is for little kids. My kids liked it for a little bit, and then they were done because we really were floating.
There were really only a couple big like waves that were really fun, honestly. I thought they were, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There were a couple that were pretty fun, but overall it was it's relaxing. Don't get me wrong. We saw some wildlife. I think we saw
2 deer.
maybe 2 deer. So it was very relaxing. It was great. We had a wonderful guide. He was very knowledgeable about Yellowstone, so he gave us a lot of great tips. The water is cold. It was not pleasant to be in it at all. I think my kids dipped their feet in and they said, nope, not happening.
Well, I got in once.
Yeah.
But I didn't stay in.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would recommend that, depending on what you're looking for. I know the water level was down and that made a huge difference. But if you're looking to really whitewater raft, that's not the rafting trip for you. If you're looking to just chill, that is a good trip for you. If you have little kids, it is very, very safe for the little kids, at least when we were there, because the water was low. And that again was in July. It was like the end of July or middle to end of July.
So we couldn't go on a bigger one, I think, because of my age. I think that, really? We could have gone on a bigger one?
No, that was what was available.
Oh, never mind.
Kids. Ah. So it was still fun. They had a great time. We probably could have done a half a day on that one and did good. And that way we could have spent the rest of the time in the park. I will say, this really got to be frustrating at times, and I get it because you go to Yellowstone, you're looking to see the wildlife, but they have pullouts for this reason. There were so many times that the traffic was at a standstill for 45 minutes or longer because someone was stopped in the middle of the road looking at wildlife, and it hung up the rest of the traffic. So we couldn't get out of the park. So that was a tiny bit frustrating. So use those pullouts when you can. And if you have somebody in the car with you, of course everybody slows down. You can't go fast and the roads are windy. Have someone else take those pictures for you and videos for you.
It was so frustrating when it took us almost an hour to get out of the park because someone stopped to look at just one bison.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tiny bit frustrating. But that was a one-of-a-kind trip. I wish we would have had a lot more time in Yellowstone. We didn't get to do nearly as much hiking as we wanted to do. The travel was not something we expected. It took a long time to get to the big sites. If you're looking to go for those big sites, it took a long time to get to those destinations in between each one. You might think that you're going to go and get to all of them or 4 of them in a day. You are not going to do that.
Depending on where you're staying.
We did stay outside of the park. If you're staying in the park, maybe that's different. We stayed outside of the park, so it was an hour to the park and then an hour back out of the park. And that was frustrating, but again, we made it very last minute, so we were lucky to get into Big Sky. Big Sky is a neat little town. We enjoyed it. It was very pretty. If we ever get to go back, we definitely want to try fly fishing. We saw tons and tons of fly fishermen out in the river when we were driving. It was so beautiful. We didn't see any bears when we were out there in the wilds. We did go to a little bear sanctuary. That was kind of neat, and I'll share a little snippet of that. It was very cute, and they really try to help bears that were in bad situations.
Yeah.
So they only had a couple.
Another place that would be...
That's right, we didn't. The dino?
Another place that's great to go, especially if you have little boys. I mean, it could be good for girls too. But, I mean, most boys are very interested in dinosaurs. I'm not saying girls can't, but if you have little kids, there's this nice little dinosaur place.
Yep.
And there was actually more than dinosaurs there. There was dinosaur bones and stuff like that. It had some history of that, like the skeleton, and then also the outside of the dinosaur. And then there was a bunch of stuff from, like, I don't know, a long time ago, when there were Vikings and stuff like that. And then also another cool thing, if you are a history lover, you'd probably love this a lot. There's actually a place by the dinosaur, or actually it was at the dinosaur place. I don't know what the family's last name is called, but it was their house, and it looks really creepy, but it's actually kind of cute inside. It's very old, and very, very cool. They had a little cellar that we could go in, and it was really cool. And their farm stuff, all that kind of stuff. 3 people in my family love history, so we really liked that. So
Yes. So those are our tips. I hope they are helpful. And I hope them, if you do use any of them, let us know. And enjoy your Yellowstone trip. Make the most of it. There are some beautiful waterfalls. Those were probably my most favorite things to see. I wasn't as impressed with the geysers, but the waterfalls were outstanding. They're amazing. We actually played in the river as well, kind of on a whim, which was very, very fun. We'll put some videos in there for that as well. But if you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to add them down there. Please forgive us for the choppiness of our first video. We're learning how to do it. So we hope you guys have a wonderful day. We hope if you're planning your trip that you have an outstanding trip to Yellowstone. You will absolutely love it.
have a good day.
Bye.